This is Twit.
Motorola has announced the Moto E. It's cheaper than the Moto G. It's kind of the smartphone for everyone. If you go to goodbyedumbphone.com is the Moto E's marketing site. And this thing's looking pretty amazing. Really cheap, really good hardware. So let's run through it. It's $129 off contract, and this is 1.2 gigahertz dual core Snapdragon 200 processor, 1 gigabyte RAM, 4.3 inch display, 960 by 540 display, 1980 mAh battery, 5 megapixel rear facing camera, no front facing camera, 4 gigabytes internal storage, micro SD slot, backplates can be customized. Really good looking phone, pretty great phone for pretty low price, off contract. Also, Motorola announced that the Moto G with LTE will be available for $218 off contract. This is awesome, you guys.
Yeah, this is really good, especially for kids. Like, if you have kids going into getting their first phone or going into middle school or something. At least that's when we started phones. Smartphones for our kids was like, okay, when you go into middle school and you have to stay after, for special events or soccer practice or whatever, you never know when it's going to end. Kids need a phone to call home. And this is a perfect entry level phone. I mean, it is water resistant. It's plenty snappy enough for kids to have fun, play some games, do what they need to do. It doesn't have a flash. It doesn't have the front facing camera, like you mentioned. I don't know that that's a deal breaker.
Though, for kids not having a front-facing camera for their selfies, you have to imagine that that might be one of those things. It's like, oh, you ended up with that phone. Oh,
I don't know. I don't know. I think it looks pretty good, though. I think
it looks pretty good.
I think my kids would be happy with this.
I guess I just think about my 4-year-old daughter who she has some games on my phone. Probably one of the reasons why I need to wipe out my Nexus 5 and start over again. But some of those games actually use that front-facing camera to she creates a bow or something, and then she can take a picture of herself and put the bow on it. And that's something that she loves to do when she's 4.
Yeah, right.
But yes, no, and absolutely, Motorola has to cut corners in order to make a phone that only costs $129 off contract, and I think that's kind of an obvious thing to get rid of.
Yeah,
and this is a good looking phone. Like, this isn't like, you don't look at this phone and think, oh, like that's the cheap phone. It's running KitKat. It's running the latest version of Android. I mean, this is a really nice device. I would buy this device. I'd use this device and not feel like, oh, I got the cheap low level phone. I mean, that's what it is, right? But it doesn't. It looks pretty good.
Yeah, and what's the app? I can't remember the name. They've got a special app that came with it.
The emergency
thing. That's another reason why I say it's good for kids, is because
that's true.
They demoed it on phone arena or phone
Motorola Alert.
Or maybe it was
we go. Motorola Alert.
Alert. That's what it was.
Notify families in case of emergency. Okay,
right. So it has an emergency mode, which when you press it, it automatically sends texts out to whoever you put on there, and it calls an emergency number. So that could be like, your parent. If there's an emergency, whatever, you just hit that button. That's all they have to worry about. But there's also like a meet me part of it, which is like, how your kids, well, maybe you guys don't know. I know. You drop off your kids somewhere like the mall or something, and you don't know where they are. You want an easy way to figure it out. So your kid can actually hit the meet me button on it. It'll send your GPS coordinates to the parent, which can then click on them and automatically open them up in Google Maps to direct you exactly which corner your kid is waiting on for you to pick them up. So things like that I think is really cool. So that app, I don't know if that's gonna also. I'm assuming that'll also run on Moto X, and
I tried to.
Moto G,
I logged in to see if it would install on my wife's Moto X, and it did not say that it was compatible. Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
There's nothing special about it.
I know. They did it through the web interface, and it didn't. I expected to see that it would.
Yeah.
And it wasn't there. But
I'm kind of wondering if they did that with kids in mind. Like, if they knew, like, this is going to kind of be for, that first smartphone or younger audience. It'd be good to have an app in there that parents can feel comfortable that their kids are going to have, like, that emergency button if they need it. So.
4 gigs of internal storage obviously isn't a lot, but it does have the micro SD card slot.
Yep.
So you can extend that if you want more storage than that. I mean, great price, $129 off contract, great looking hardware. Obviously, it's for the people who maybe have never had a smartphone before, but they also have to, even though this is less expensive than a lot of other devices off contract, still have to be okay with paying the monthly data fee.
Right.
And that can be another mountain to tackle for a lot, for a lot of people.
But it makes sense. I mean, my mom got her first smartphone recently, and it was a Moto X. You know,
Awesome.
so similar.
Did it work well for her?
Yeah, it works great for her. And I didn't, she got it on her own. She's like, she just picked it out. I was pretty impressed. I'm like, yeah, it's a good phone, Mom.
My dad went rogue months ago and bought himself an iPhone.
Ooh.
And then, I found out about all this later. I was like, hey, Dad, you got to talk to your son. I know about this kind of stuff. And he went rogue, got the iPhone, first smartphone. 3 days later, took it back. It was just too complicated for him. Now he's back on a flip phone, and it could have soured the experience for him.
Right,
like, no.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So, I don't know. Maybe he'll come back around.
In the U.S. anyway, I mean, for someone to buy a phone like this that's off contract, and I mean, does it come with? I'm not sure if it comes with a SIM card. I mean, so you buy this phone and then you have to walk into a T-Mobile store, an AT&T store, and say, "Hey, I need a SIM card." Is a regular consumer going to even know what that's like, right? I mean, I think Americans particularly are just used to walking into a Verizon store, choosing a phone there, or what like getting the phone with the service is so kind of ingrained in our, unlike in Europe. I think that's the only other thing. T-Mobile, I have that $30 T-Mobile plan that you have, Jason. They've kind of buried it in the site. It's not easy to find it. You can't get, I got walked into the store to get the new SIM for my the M8, and they were like, the red shirts were like, where did you get this plan? They didn't know. Yeah. So I mean, like, this phone I would, if my daughter was a lot older, I would get her this phone with that T-Mobile plan. Which actually the capped minutes would actually serve me well in that case, but it wouldn't be easy to do, right?
Right. Well, we switched to
a carrier that supports this kind of thing.
I mean, I recently switched everybody but me to T-Mobile, and it's the family share plan, whatever it's called, which is really great for families because it's like $10 to add another phone to the plan. It's unlimited talk and unlimited data. Well, it's not unlimited data. They do cap you at like 2.5. It's 500 or 2.5. Anyway. So it's a really good plan, though, because I don't have to worry about too many texts, too many calls, data. All they're going to do is slow down the data if it gets to a certain point. So I've told them, make sure you're on Wi-Fi if you're downloading stuff. And that's really all I had to do. So, and we brought all our own phones. I bought them on Craigslist, brought them in, activated them, no big deal. So I think T-Mobile is starting to change that equation. I agree with you, though. For the majority of Americans, they're just going to walk into Verizon and say, what have you got? Not worry about contracts, unfortunately.
Right, but it's sort of the death march into the contract.
It is.
Assume that you're like committing yourself to a phone and a contract for 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that perception has to change. I don't think carriers are jumping to the front of the line to try to change that perception because they want to lock you in no contract, and we're just kind of used to that here in the States.
We're addicted to the contracts. Addicted to the subsidies, rather, maybe not the contracts.
Right.